Welcome to Stories, Science and Secrets, Episode 7. If you haven't heard our stories so far, you need to go back to Episode 1 where it all begins. Lost on Infinity, Moog has had an idea, but meanwhile, a passenger pigeon called Iggy and a dodo called Ono have a plan of their own.
It hadn't taken Iggy and Ono long to find the Registrar. The giant, harsh-voiced, guitar-riffing mantis was hopping around the valley, aware that something unusual was going on, desperate to sort things out and to get order restored. Rules were being broken today, and rules were not meant to be broken. Alerted by the birds, the Registrar now joined the crowd on the dunes and stared coldly down at the small boy on the beach.
If a human is here,
Iggy was saying,
then it should be checked in. It's always been done that way.
I know that,
said the Registrar in its sharp, metallic tone.
You don't need to tell me what to do. 2, 3, 4.
I am the one, make exception for none. I just like things to run efficiently. All species face their fate. I don't discriminate. No one is special to me. But they still say,
oh, dearie me, I think we've gone a little too far. Won't you set us free?
no, because I am the Registrar.
Oh, dearie me, I think we've gone a little too far. Won't you set us free?
No, because I am the Registrar.
The Registrar now grabbed 2 pieces of wood strung to create a double-headed guitar, and with the billipede once again speeding up and down, the Registrar wigged out.
Ha ha ha.
Registrar! I am the Registrar! I am the Registrar! Sorry,
said Iggy. Nobody liked to cross the Registrar. It was rumoured that it had arrived on Infinity by eating the only other one of its kind.
Anyway, we're all agreed, aren't we?
The Registrar looked down at the group of animals, all of whom seemed to agree that humans were a bad thing. And looking on from the back of the crowd was a small, sticky, cocklebur ick.
For our fur was all sticky and thick, and we cried in the night in the street.
Won't any of those animals help?
Said Moog, looking up to the crowd on the dunes. Patrick stared away into the distance, too polite to answer, but the boy understood what his silence meant.
I know people can be horrible to animals,
said Moog, who had read about the dodo and the great auk at the Natural History Museum.
Rockford's first owners were a bit cruel to him.
Rockford shook himself at this, and they could see it was true.
So do all the animals here hate humans?
Oh no, not all,
said Patrick kindly.
There are many animals here who have nothing at all against people. After all, you haven't been around very long, have you? Take my friend the Herculous Bird. Died out 65 million years ago. Nothing to do with humans whatsoever. All those creatures,
He looked up to the crowd on the dunes,
are recent arrivals. What we need is someone with no preconceptions, like Herc. He really should be here by now. Ah, here he is.
As Moog looked up, the enormous orange shape of a giant flying creature was looming towards them. It looked familiar. He had seen a picture of something a bit like it in books. But the things he had seen in books were just big. This was more than big. The Herculus was bigger than big. It was enormous. It was gigantic. It was the largest creature Moog had ever seen. It was the largest creature anyone had ever seen. It was as big as a blue whale, but it was flying on 2 huge sets of double wings and a vast beating tail.
This is the Herculous Bird. Herc to his friends. Fascinating life story, of course, terrible really. One day jetting around the world, the next, kaboom! If you see what I mean.
Moog didn't have a clue what he was talking about.
Well, you see,
Said Patrick.
it's like this. Look to the skies, see the mountain that seems to fly by. Hard to believe that this creature was once built for speed. So you may ask, how did something so large fly so fast? Far in the past, it was blessed with the power to blast. He's a Herculous bird, and though it sounds quite absurd, they were the first wind-powered heroes. They blew up like a rocket, the fastest things that ever flew. Lord of the skies, there's no others could fly quite so high. Oh, don't you know, in hot weather they all would explode. For he's a Herculous bird, and though it sounds quite absurd, high in the sun these wind-powered heroes, they blew up like a rocket, the fastest blast that ever flew. So much for supernova. Behold the biggest bang that ever blew. Oh yeah, Cretaceous mass extinctions weren't due to cosmic frictions, but spontaneous combustions of Herculous proportion. Oh yeah, so this mighty flying sumo now flies our skies in solo, a sprint wind-powered hero, last Herculous to zero. Oh yeah.
Well, there we go. The arrival of the Herculous bird, the largest creature ever to have lived. In our story, anyway. Now, I'm sure by now you know the score. Episode 8 of Story, Science and Secrets is out now, with the next amazing episode of Lost on Infinity. But for the rest of us, we're going to be talking about what we've just heard, and I'm afraid there's no getting away from the fact that since this episode introduces a large wind-powered dinosaur, it's going to involve a lot of, well, wind. And so, if you don't like the mention of such matters, we suggest that you retire gracefully to episode 8 now. But as I say, for everybody who doesn't mind the occasional I'm here with Matthew and Steve.
Hello.
And first of all, in our special windy edition, we're going to talk about the most dangerous creature on the planet.
So we all love cows, don't we? Standing in fields, eating grass and mooing peacefully.
Yes, they look pretty innocent, don't they? But did you know they're planning something?
Planning what?
The destruction of the world.
And how are they going to do that?
With their bottoms.
That's right. Cows are planning Armageddon using only the power of their farts, basically.
Look, this is a family podcast, so could we avoid the F word, please?
Oh, okay. It'll be difficult, but we'll find an alternative. Let's get back to cows.
And them destroying the world.
Look, it's really not that bad. Please don't have cow nightmares. But it is true that when they digest their food, cows produce gas. To be precise, a gas called methane, which they let out into the air via their... Better?
And the thing is, methane is what they call a greenhouse gas, and it's more powerful than carbon dioxide.
Look, it may seem like we're going over the top here, but it's actually a big problem for our environment. Greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and methane, lead to global warming, and almost 15% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions come from cows.
And don't forget their burps.
Absolutely. In fact, with their... and cows create 5 times more greenhouse gas emissions than planes. But don't worry, scientists are working hard to come up with ways to help cows reduce their methane production.
One way is to change their diets. Giving them foods like seaweed, for example, can help reduce their... And, obviously stop giving them sprouts at Christmas.
Another way is to capture the methane they create and use it for energy.
How do they do that?
Well, it could put the cow in a nappy and attach a vacuum. Can't they keep their legs crossed or just clench?
No, not really. Scientists are even trying to create new breeds of cows that don't produce as much gas. So while cow and may seem funny, they're actually a big deal for the planet.
But thanks to some clever and dedicated scientists, we're now on the way to finding solutions to this windy problem. Now, hold on a second. I don't think we should allow our listeners to go away scared of cows. There are many wonderful things about them.
Yes, but since this episode is rather dominated by bottoms, one of the most amazing things about cows is about their digestion. And here's Steve to tell us a little bit more about that. Creatures' secret. Creatures' secrets.
Creatures' secrets.
Creatures' secrets. Creatures' secrets.
What? Creatures' secrets.
Ooh.
The story of the cow sewage farm. As I'm sure you know, when you flush the toilet, all the waste goes into a large pipe, and that pipe takes all the waste happily off to a sewage treatment plant. It's like a spa for poo. But not all countries are lucky enough to have expensive sewage treatment plants. In fact, in India, only a third of the wastewater gets treated. And that means a lot of dirty water gets dumped into rivers and lakes. And that's bad news for fish and water animals, and for humans too, because dirty water leads to disease. But there's a man in Bangalore in India named Tharan Kumar who looked at cows for inspiration and came up with a unique money-saving solution. Cows, you see, have amazing stomachs with 4 compartments, and as the grass they eat passes through those compartments, super cow bacteria break it down naturally into gas, nutrients, water and waste. Why can't we make a simple sewage plant that does that? Thought Tharan. So that's exactly what he did. Now, because sewage plants normally use electric fans to help break down waste, they're very expensive to run. But like a cow's stomach, Tharan's sewage plants don't need electric power or people to operate them. There's no moving parts. The dirty water moves using gravity. Downhill, between the 4 chambers, super cow bacteria eat up all the yucky stuff and make the water clean again. Amazing. Tharan's sewage treatment plants have already saved 280 million litres of water and 315 megawatts of energy since they were built. And that's like powering 35 villages for a year. So there you go. Another example of biomimicry and how we can learn to do things better by studying the natural world. Oh, and making a lot of poo very happy.
Fantastic. Now, apart from his wind power, there is something else remarkable about the Herculous bird. In our story, he is, of course, the largest creature ever to have existed. Bigger than the blue whales alive today, which, until very recently, were thought to be the biggest animals ever.
Now, I don't know about you, but I always feel just a little bit let down when I hear that the biggest creature that has ever existed is around today. Not that blue whales aren't extraordinary, wonderful, magnificent and amazing creatures, but I like to think that there was something far, far bigger, something ridiculously, insanely big alive in the past, trudging around like, I don't know, a 400-ton hamster. It would make anything alive today look puny.
Well, Matthew, today is your lucky day, because thanks to a very recent discovery in Peru in South America, things may have changed. You see, they have discovered some very big bones.
My mother used to say the lady next door was big-boned.
They're really heavy too, and scientists think they're from a type of whale that lived 40 million years ago, and which they've now called Parasitus colossus.
Or in other words,
Really, 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 really big whale from Peru. They're clever, those scientists.
in total they found 18 bones, including 13 vertebrae, backbones, 4 ribs and part of the right hip, but no skull. And all of these bones are much larger than those of other whales from this time.
Which has shaken things up a bit.
And like I say, these bones are really heavy and strong. In fact, they're more like sea cows and manatees who are alive today, who have super dense bones to help weigh them down so they stay underwater while they munch on their food.
That's also just like the lady that used to live next door.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists think that the Parasitus colossus,
Really big whale from Peru.
might have weighed a mind-wobbling 340 tons. That's twice as heavy as today's blue whales.
And this isn't just a big deal because of its weight. This ancient whale breaks all the rules compared with its relatives from back in the day. So, for example, scientists are still figuring out what it ate. With no full skull to study, that's difficult, but just imagine how much it must have eaten to keep a 340-ton creature alive.
Once again, this discovery shows us how many secrets are still out there, waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps by you.
Perhaps one day they'll discover a Herculous bird.
You what?
Okay, since there's been so much about it in this episode, and I do apologise to anybody who's been offended in any way by our mention of wind, we promise we're going to avoid it for the entire rest of this series.
Yes, but since we are on the subject, and it is such an amazing topic, we're going to leave you with just a few remarkable windy facts, because let's face it, expelling wind is something that we all do, and it is funny. Well, mostly it's funny. When I got nervous at my last job interview, it wasn't that funny, but it is often funny. So,
Here's Steve Punt achieving the pinnacle of his comedy career with a few fun facts for you to enjoy and maybe share with your family or friends or neighbours or perhaps in your school assembly. Steve!
oh, I've just heard Steve has refused to read the script, but that's okay because we've got AI Steve instead. See if you can tell the difference.
A typical human poot is composed of around 59% nitrogen, 21% hydrogen, 9% carbon dioxide. Only 1% of the average windy bomb contains hydrogen sulfide, which is what makes them whiffy. Human wind can reach speeds of 10 feet per second. Who exactly spent time researching this, we do not know. The average person produces about half a litre of wind every day, enough to fill a party balloon. Termites, tiny insects a bit like ants, poot more than any other animal. Termites release 20 million tonnes of methane every year, making them the second largest natural source of methane emissions. After,
Cows.
While most people feel that wind should not be encouraged in polite company, there are some cultures that are delighted to let rip in public. A tribe in South America called the Yanomami fart as a greeting. Hello, Grandma.
Thank you, AI Steve. I think he's probably better than the real one. Anyway, thank you to you too for all your emails this week, and we'll do our best to reply to them all just as soon as we can. But one question we've had a lot, especially after last week's episode, was about Kenny the cat and how he is, if he's okay, and indeed if Elaine's okay. Anyway, Kenny is fine, as is Elaine. And if you want to find out a little bit more about Kenny, then if you follow us on Instagram, or get your parents to have a look on Instagram, Rockford's Rock Opera, you'll find lots of information about Kenneth the cat, and indeed loads more about Rockford stories, about creature secrets, and all sorts of fascinating stuff. So Kenny the cat is, he's about 3 years old as far as we know. He's a ginger cat. He arrived 2 years ago now from a rescue centre. He's a rescue cat, and he came with the name Kenneth. He was found on a rubbish tip in North London by a gentleman called Kenneth, and therefore that was the name he arrived with. And we thought, well, we'll change that. But of course we haven't. So Ken, the cat, is very much part of our lives. Kensington High Street is actually his pedigree name. But if you want to know more about Kenneth the Menace, then visit Rockford's Rock Opera on Instagram. And there's a link there in our story notes.
That's the end of Story, Science and Secrets, Episode 7. But Chapter 8 is out now, so you can discover the next amazing episode of Lost on Infinity, and a whole load of science and secrets which we promise won't have anything to do with... Thanks very much for listening, and don't forget to send in your questions. And you can rate and review us, of course. But for now, it's goodbye from Steve.
Goodbye.
Matthew. Kenny the cat. And me, Elaine. Goodbye. Here's the Registrar to play us out.
No, because I am the Registrar!
Oh, dear me, I think we've come a little too far. Won't you set us free?
No, because I am the Registrar! I am the Registrar! I am the Registrar!